Good evening. This is your Sensei Al Bob, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob. And as always, we are here to entertain and give food for thought. So, how'd you like this morning's little comic edifice? I thought it was kind of fun. I was channeling the great leader. I was just watching the beginning of that Seth Rogen movie, The Interview, with the Chinese guy or the Korean guy, or what's his name? Like a little rocket man? Yeah, that guy. Hey, Jane, how was your day? What did you think of our morning show? I've mused. My mouth still hurts, though. So I may not be able to be wild and crazy. Yep. But as always, it was a deep metaphor, right? Kind of really showing you what's behind the curtain. I feel better, but my mouth still hurts. Right over here, I got like 3 holes there. And I try to eat some regular food, and anyway, it is what it is. It's I've had it done before, so it's okay. It really doesn't heal up for a good month. It stays sore for at least a good week or 2. But with my meditation, it was like really I could barely talk last night. That's kind of why I didn't. And this morning, I just kind of went with it, and John went with it, and when you are in the flow, it's okay. Yeah, one day I got 6 teeth left, and I'm trying to hold on to them. My grandma had dentures, and she cursed them, and they used to. And I've had friends where I live in the deep green, pretty much everyone starts chewing. You know what snuff is? It's powdery tobacco, comes in a can, skull, and people dip it, they put it here. By the time they're 16, all their teeth have rotted out of their head. So pretty much all my neighbors have false teeth, and they'll be talking to you, and the teeth just pop right out of their head. And, like the dentist I went to the jail dentist. Here, the people who have no health care or anything, you get to go to the jail health care. And so in the waiting room, you're sitting there, and there's guys with shackles on and guys with guns. And that's how, healthcare is going to be in America. It's unless we do something about it. And it's not going to be done. Just last night's little. That's why I did the channeling a Donnie Chump, because it's. Politics has been horse manure, since day one. Since Mesopotamia, Syria, Egypt, Greece, Rome. If you read them like I have read them, it's always been a joke. And then Shakespeare really tried to, tell it like it was when he said, the whole world's a stage and we're all just a bunch of clowns on the stage. So my favorite of Shakespeare is Midsummer's Night Dream. And the little fairy motif of Puck was my favorite. We don't really have that. The only thing we have here is jail dentistry. And those people are out of, I mean, I had one dentist extract a tooth. Usually, a good dental surgeon can take a tooth out in less than 5 minutes. This person took an hour and a half to the point where her superior came in and pushed her out of the way and took care of it. But by that time, she destroyed the bones in my jaw. Yeah, it'll work out. Everything always works out, Jane. Don't worry about it. It's just I had 3 teeth taken out in one spot. Ooh, hurts. And my teeth are kind of crappy, so two of the teeth, and one of the tooth that came out was like, you know, collateral damage. But they all have to come out, so I'm just trying to keep a few in there so I can chew. Yeah, that hurts. Yep. Didn't even get nitrous oxide. Anyway, but that's neither here nor there. The title of this one is What Do You Guys Want? What do you want to see? Because when you can visualize what you want to see, that's what you're going to get. Yeah. Guys, I celebrate my birthday every day of the year because I'm just happy to be here, right? Age is irrelevant, so right now, 69 years old. So it's all irrelevant, because my dad, up until the day he died, he kept saying, I feel like I'm 16. And the better part of my father was 16. That was the fun part. That was the over the horizon part. That was the guy who I had a lot of fun with. And I did my best to be his muse so the last 28 years of my parents' life could be good. Not, economically or physically, but spiritually and emotionally, and that's what counts. Yeah, hey, I'm the healthy, as my, endocrinologist keeps telling me, I'm the healthiest dead guy he knows. And my, my leg doctors, Aquarians, our weakest part is our ankles. And of course, that's the part of my body that has dissolved due to my neuropathy. And, they wanted to cut my legs off, but I wouldn't let them. And they said, well, it's going to hurt walking around with those pegs. You should just let us cut you, and then you'd be in a wheelchair. Then we give you total disability, and then I'd be dead in 2 years, because that's the numbers. Yeah, I have Aquarian moon, too. I mean, my major sign is Aquarius. My moon is in, actually, my moon is in Scorpio, I think. I'd have to look at my chart. I'm more a person who is guided by the stars and not led by it, meaning I use it to do cold readings on other people. I don't really look at what's going on in my natal chart at the moment. I do read the newspaper. I mean, the only thing I look in the newspaper is my horoscope. My friend Angelo used to tell me that. He was a great little guy. He was from the mountains of Mexico, and he had a great mountain Mexican restaurant in Benton, Virginia, the best Mexican food on the East Coast. People came from miles around, and he and his wife car crashed in their 80s. And that's probably the best way they could go out, because they were both pretty sick, and they just kept working because they loved cooking food for people like me and everybody else in the community. Now it's turned into a greasy burger place, and the basic people who live in that town don't care. But what do you want? That's the show's tenor tonight. Where do you want? This is a collective here, gang. Yes, I am your Sensei Al Bob. Yes, I got the eye on the ball. I lead by an example. But what do you guys want? What do you want to see? Because I'm telling you, right now is a window of opportunity. The next, between now and 2020, that's one part of the window. And then between now and 2022 is another part of, the window gets closed more and more. Right now, it's like pretty open. These synchronistic trends are just crossing each other, like, right? And, all the stuff that people were talking about, oh, the end of times. Well, Nibiru had already came through here between 1790 and 1840. Go look at the mud flood. Skills. Yeah, I got a lot of skills. Skills, Jane, what skills? What are we talking about here? Let's see. Want to see more of your talents? Fine acting. 6 comedy. Yep. Well, that's like the morning show. The morning show will be comedies, The evening show is going to be, more the cadre, the chorus, the shock troops, right? The traveling. And so, Jane, what have you seen in your Akashic record? Every time we go in and I ask you to evacuate your anger, have you gone back? Love the going into state, right? So have you been going into state, Jane, on your own, during the day? Because all you got to do is close your eyes, breathe 20%, and bingo, there you are. And once you're in state, so what have you seen in your Akashic record? What have you observed your anger? Because every time I take you someplace, I have you evacuate your anger. You're invisible. Well, when we go visit lands, and we go through the tree of knowledge, yeah, you're invisible. You go through the doors, angry grounding. Yep. Have you looked at the causes of your anger? Have you started to understand the power of forgiveness? Have you felt love's co-creation? Yes. Okay. So how does, what does your anger tell you? Because, see, everything's a lesson. Nothing is, nothing, people want life to be simple and ice cream and jujus and gummy bears. And what is co-creation but service to love's? What makes everything that isn't love's co-creation is illusion. I mean, everything. And that's why there is no real bad or good, because this is just a training apparatus. And when we can get to a place where we can be love's co-creation, the bubble of Luciferian illusion will pop. Oh, good. And everything, again, is a lesson. And what's great about the Akashic Record is that the information is there, it's accessible, and it's always there. You just have to go into state, go into your library, and look in the book, right? Look at your past lives, look what you just did 20 seconds ago. I used it a great deal back in the day when I had careers. And it was my ace in the hole. When I was a contractor, I would go into the state. I'd see how everything should be because, there's always issues. There's where to park the truck, parking tax, blah, 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 blah. I would visualize everything being just the way it should be. And as my teacher would say, all things are as they should be. And I would just go with that. Now, when I get impatient, that's when things don't work too good. That's one of my little things. So when I'm awake, conscious, I'm a patient guy. But if I'm unconscious, I'm just a moron. Mm-hmm. Ay. I'm gonna lie back here and relax a little. Hey, Twitch. Dr. Courtney Brown Forsythe. Tell me about that, Jane. Well, Twitch, we are just getting into it. We're 15 minutes, and we're talking about what do you want, you know? And those of the chorus, we've been here, at least 2 months. So if everyone's been practicing going into state on their own, well, we're all pretty, and I can sense energetically that you guys have been doing that. But you have to go into that place that shows you who you are, where you are, what you need to be doing, what things you got to do to, Like I could have put off getting these teeth ripped out of my head yesterday. It was my frigging birthday. I don't want to do that on my birthday. But every day, as I was saying, is my birthday. So I knew that, it was okay, but they were punky. And if I take them out now, they're not there. So they won't abscess. They won't infect. They won't go south, right? So I put up with the, and my teeth, my gums, this side of my mouth will be sore, but it's better than it was after I got them pulled out after the Novocaine. I was drooling so much, people were looking at me funny. I was in a Barnes and Noble reading books, and I read pretty quick, so I go and I pick up a pile of books from the stands, and I sit down in whatever comfortable seat it is, and I read the book from cover to cover. I can read, I can scan, not read, but scan about 100 pages in about 20 minutes. Did you ever take the Evelyn Wood speed reading course? It's a really good course, and it gave me, I took that when I was in, 7th grade, and it really did a positive thing for me to be able to go into my Akashic record, because it was kind of like that. All these things are connected, We missed the stream. Where do we find that? What stream? Let's see. Yeah, I gargle with salt water. Yep. I appreciate all your advice, because I can feel the love that you give it with. But yep, I do all that. I use all the right herbs and the right everything. But I had to I won't go there. Anyway. So Twitchy, did you go see, let's see, you talked about recent LA booms, and stealth exercise is something else. Dr. What's his name? Dr. Courtney Brown Forsythe. Well, Jane, all these things, what I would love is you just keep sending, a lot of you do, just keep sending me links on the Dude Awake 42 at Gmail, and I will go look at them. I look at them all, not immediately, but I pretty much look at them all. And I also pretty much, rotate, respond to everyone's email. Maybe not immediately, but some days are better than others. Recent LA booms, noises. Well, LA, all of California is one gigantic military industrial complex. They do so many weird things there. When my dad was in the Air Force in the 60s, we were at Edwards, right? Because I love that shit. And my father could take me anywhere. So, he took me to see a nuclear explosion in Nevada before they stopped doing it above ground. And that was, I was 6 years old in a little business suit. It was quite interesting. And when they blew it up, we didn't face the nuclear explosion, but once the flash kind of, put an imprint on the concrete wall that we were facing, I turned around and had these, welder's goggles on. And my dad said, "Put your head up to your eyes." And I did. And the x-rays from the nuclear explosion, I could see the bones in my hands. That was interesting. But we were at Edwards, and I was where they had the SR-71, and they were vectoring this guy in, and he was on the radar screen, and blip, 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 and then all of a sudden he was gone. And so they said, "Hey, where are you?" And he says, "Oh, I'm bad. Hit the wrong button. I'm over Hawaii." Meaning he went from coming into Edwards in California to being in Hawaii like in less than a minute. And that's like 1,000 miles at least, if not more. That means that airplane does more than it's advertised. It had, So that's, nothing is what it seems to be. And don't believe anything I say. Twitchy, did you see this morning's Comic Relief? My take on, mine and John's take on Donnie Chump. I'm shamanically projecting what these guys do, and John is, mirroring the canary's image of what we all are told to think. Booms. Stealth exercise is something else. Yeah. Yep, I'm hanging in there. I mean, my jaw hurts a little bit, but doesn't hurt as much as it did. And, pain kind of, when you're doing stuff, moving around, you don't feel the pain. But when it's getting towards evening and you're going to go to sleep and your body slows down, that's when you start to feel things. And I haven't really focused my meditation on the pain. What do you think, Twitch? Yeah. No, I was just being, I come from many schools. I went to the Herbert Berghoff School, HB Studios for theater. I was part of the Living Theater. I was in a lot of theater in New York in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. So, I'm a thespian. And I just kind of use my ability to remote view and then take that energy and put it sideways, just like my phone here. And that's how I can do a character, And when I think of, there's that commercial of that pig, going, wee, wee, that's how I see Donald Trump. I used to work for that guy. Well, I worked for my girlfriend at the time was the architect, one of the architects of Trump Towers. And she was on the team that did the lobby, right? And the lobby is, the place where everyone sees. And I don't know if any of you seen the lobby at Trump Tower or been in it, but what it was, so she was on the team, and then the team leader kind of died or had a seizure or something, pressure. And she was definitely the most talented one. I mean, she was doing all the work, and he just took all the credit, and then he kind of keeled over. And so they said, you take over. And so she did. And at the time, I was making these reflective devices that I would put on street lights, not traffic lights, but street lights. And they're very powerful, those street lights. They're sodium vapor, mercury vapor, and they have reflectors inside. And they're very similar to theater instruments like Lecos, right? Because they can focus light. So I would stick these reflectors right on it. So it would, a gobo, there's a thing called a Leco. It's basically like a slide projector, but it's a theater lighting instrument. And a gobo is a metal thing that you cut out and you slide into it, and it projects like a palm tree or whatever you want to project, right? And that's, you kind of use that in theater as a, like a window. You could, project a window frame and the character would stand in it without having to build a window. Bingo. You turn on the light. Bingo. You got a window. So I would make these things, and they would make reflective images, and that they would shine them down the street, right? And in places like Soho and Tribeca and the Battery, before they were Soho, Tribeca, and the Battery, the Battery was always the Battery, but those other places were just kind of crappy neighborhoods that we lived in, and the Lower East Side. Anyway, so I projected a lot, and I projected things like people getting murdered or flying saucers. A very Keith Haring kind of images. Anyway, my girlfriend was the architect of the lobby, and so she knew all the stuff I was doing. And so one of her ideas was to have a waterfall the back wall of the lobby. So she wanted me to put my little reflective doodads along the wall with lights on them. And I was in Local 3, so I could go on construction sites, and the union guys they knew me. Back in the day, I had been a union rep for the IBEW. I was the youngest one because nobody wanted to do the job. I worked on the World Trade Center. Anyway, so, I made her happy by making her lobby look amazing. And I'm sure that stuff is still there. And by me doing that, I got a lot of work on a lot of other projects, right? So I didn't need to get the credit because the people who were important, the engineers, the architects, the developers, the contractors, they knew who I was, so I would get the work. And that's all that I cared. The gratitude and respect of my peers, not some chump. And that's what Donnie was, because I met him a number of times, and he would just come in. He had the attention span and he was in his, 30s or 40s when he did that building, maybe late 20s, early 30s. Anyway, long story short, you could see this guy was a daddy's boy, right? And that's why I started calling him Donnie Chump. And he had people around him, doing all the detailed work, but not him. He couldn't even bother, right? If it wasn't about him, he didn't want to know. Anyway, so that's how I met Donnie. And I went to when the grand opening was. And so they had this big thing in the lobby and all these people there. And the food was the cheapest, like cheeseburgers. This guy had zero taste. And, we were invited to go to the party up in his little chalet up at the top, and it was a disgusting piece of crap. I mean, everything was gold. I mean, I sat on the toilet, it was cold. It was colder than cold. It was freaking gold. Who wouldn't sit on? I like those Walmart toilet seats that are like inflated. I like those. They're warm and they're cushy. Sitting on a gold toilet, not fun. And so that's all I had to do is envision him, from the days when I worked on his lobby and went to his party. And he had no taste, no character, no appreciation, no nothing. He was an empty piece of mierda. Where's Typo? Whee! I thought Trump was going to put Ivanka as president. Wilbur Ross? Trump was there, Ivanka, and Wilbur Ross is such a dweeb. Yep, Nazi bankers. I'm just your family griot, I'm your sensei Al Bob. I'm here as your teacher. That's it. Keep your eye on the ball. I should have a good pension, right? But see, guys, what I always did with my life, I've had so many different careers, and I got paid really well, and I got to do exactly what I wanted to do. My employers always needed me more than I needed them, but they wouldn't need me for very long. So to get a good pension, meaning I was only a local 3 boy, an IBEW boy, and a NABIT boy, and an IATSE boy, for less than a couple of years because I needed to have that to be able to get my master's license. I didn't do it as a career. Like when I was in IATSE and NABIT, and that's the Theater Electricians Union and the Movie Electricians Union, I was the guy, when you do a shoot and they have the big generator out there, and that's my job. I made sure it worked and no one got electrocuted, and I distributed the current and the grips. They did everything else. I didn't do grip work. Did it, done it, didn't want to do it. But anyway, I was getting paid $800-900 an hour. I would make, $2,000 for a period of time of 10 hours. Not but I mean I made about $3,000 every time I did that job, right? And that was a plum job because all you did was set it up, turn it on, make sure everything worked, no one got electrocuted, and then you sat over by the commissary and ate donuts. And all the guys who, I was like, I don't know, 27 when I did that job. All the other guys were like in their 40s and they weighed like 900 pounds, you know? And yeah, they had nice houses in Long Island somewhere, but, is that what I know? I didn't want to do that, you know? Anyway, and that's pretty much what I did. When I worked for the Desperate Lawyers, yeah, I made a pretty good salary, but they were contracts. I didn't work as a salaried boy. So to get retirement, you have to, be a salaried boy. And people's retirement, look what happened to the majority. My parents, who were millionaires, lost 3/4 of their wealth in less than 3 weeks because they wouldn't take their money out of the stock market. And then when it hit bottom, they got, they sold it. It was like unbelievable, And that's what happens when you, we have no money. There is no retirement. So, and healthcare, like, I think I told you this story. During Christmas, I went with church people I know to go to hospitals and try to cheer people up. I wore funny hats and my crazy glasses and stuff. And I went to this one hospital where it was a really rich people hospital, right? And there were all these rich people in there, and it was like they were in jail. Their families were keeping them there so they could drain all their money out of their accounts, keeping them alive. They all wanted to die, but the doctors and this one guy who was a millionaire, kind of ruthless, mean person, and he had been in that hospital for 4 years, and he had been in bed for 4 years, and his skin was sloughing off his body. He was on this bed that he didn't have, he kind of rested on a cushion of air. And he was in total pain, and they wouldn't let him die. I just want to die. They won't let me die. Because in his will, he left all his money to nonprofit things that he believed in, but his children, who had the power of attorney, kept him alive and just kept sucking the money out. And that's what our health care is, And I have a bunch of doctors who take care of me, and they all can't believe I'm alive, but they care about me. They're my friends. So I have better health care than rich people because I actually have doctors who take care of me, because I take care of them. I've taught them all how to meditate. I've fixed all of their relationships with their families and their kids, and they're now happy instead of miserable. So that's why they take care of me. And, I really have, so I live on $300 a month, right? Every time I need a little bit more, some of you send me something on the old Western Union, and then you send me the tracking number at the dudewake42 at Gmail. Others send me nice little packages and letters and cards and paintings and just the nicest stuff. That's what it's about. That's what life's about. And I've lived like you know, when I worked in the corporate world, I could have been millions, but I only worked 11 weeks a year because I was a contract guy. And I got paid really well. So why did I have to work any harder than, if I only had to work 11 weeks a year to make more money than I ever made before, why go any further? Yep. And Biff is, did you know that Donnie Chump, his uncle, was the head scientist or one of them at Brookhaven Labs, and Tesla had turned all of Eastern Long Island with RCA and General Sarnoff into one gigantic science experiment. That's why Brookhaven's there. And he built the cyclotron and all of the above stuff. And that's when the aliens kind of showed up. Brookhaven goes underground like 900 levels, right? That's why the Montauk Project's just, over there. There's tunnels all over the thing. It's like honeycombed underneath there. And Donnie Chump's uncle, his father's brother, basically murdered Tesla and stole, with the FBI's assistance, all of the info that Tesla had when he was living in his apartment at the New Yorker Hotel. And he brought it all back to Brookhaven, and that's where they invented scalar weapons, and they did it in the, between the 1920s and the 1940s. And the devices that took the World Trade Center down and that have been barbecuing California are basically that equipment. And Donald Trump's uncle was the man who did it. And so, the fact that he is... there are some interesting books that were written in the 1890s. Baron Trump's Journey into the Future. Go Google, or YouTube those books, because they were written in the 1890s about Baron Trump. It's all about, and his father was the last president of the United States. Go look at those books. They're quite interesting. Boo. Yep, refined. There was a picture. Some college team won the big game, and he invited them to the White House, and they wanted to have a White House kind of dinner with 20 different forks and everything, and he just brought fast food for them, and there's this picture of him like with 1,000,000 cheeseburgers, and once they walked in and they saw all that crap there, and they said, "What's this?" I said, "Oh, this is the food for you guys," and they turned around and walked out. Yep, Rothschild. But all those guys, Rothschilds, Rockefellers, they are just the poster children. They aren't in control. They aren't. I keep describing the pyramid, the folks on the bottom, and it's a Ponzi scam, Well, I live like a monk because that's my choice at the moment. Yeah. Oh, it was so sad. And none of the people there, I mean, the people who work there. So I went in with funny hats and glasses and made people laugh, but I didn't talk. I didn't tell them stories. I let them talk to me. And I went there three different times. By the third time I came, the person who was the manager said, "We don't want you here anymore." I said, "Why?" She goes, "Well, because you're listening to the people, and they're starting to want to die. Put forth their own wishes, and we are here because their families are paying us to keep them alive, so they can steal their money, and we don't want you here. We don't want them to feel good. We don't want you to lift their spirits because the staff here, once they start seeing you treat them like human beings, they want to treat them like human beings, and then there's no control. I mean, that's what our medical HMOs are about. It's about money. Yeah. Clint, isn't she amazing, Twitchy? And her writing is quite whoa. And so she wrote it. What was amazing, she did all of that work and she didn't let anyone critique it. She had this gang, just like we had the cadre, just like we had the chorus and the shock troops of Love's co-creation. She had the gang of five, and they were each other's critique. But she wouldn't go to the critics. She didn't try to sell her work. It didn't really come out until she was kind of dead, basically dead. And that's why I want you guys to spread these videos around. Twitchy, where do you live? I mean, it's getting to be spring. Once I take care of all of my medical and other issues, maybe I'll come visit you and you can help me get things digitally in line. Yeah, the last president is predictive programming. But Jane, did you see that book about Baron Trump's? That was written in the 1890s. So I worked with many autistic people, and I found that they're brilliant, and the whole thing about why I stopped being involved in the psychology career path. I have an MSW. I can hang out a shingle, and I've worked all kinds of hospitals and schools and all kinds of things. And mostly I did research work, right? And what I really found with people with autism and Asperger's and all those kind of motifs, they are just out of phase. They are like time travelers, and they're brilliant. They really are fucking brilliant. The interesting child of Trump is Marla Maples' daughter that no one talks about. And she's the best. She's a student. She's went to college. Now she's getting her doctorate, and she's like a straight A student, where all the rest of her siblings were kind of morons and just got through because of daddy's money. But she wants nothing to do. She's doing her own thing, So she's the interesting one, and she's the one people make fun of, and she doesn't care. Unless they want them to last. I mean, if they're poor, yeah, they last about a year. If they're rich, they will last as long as it takes for their family to milk their money. Yeah, I mean, our bodies are meant to last, Just the illusion world that we're in. You live with your parents. Well, you're gonna have to come visit us then, Twitch. No, you are not a bum. None of the cadre are bums. You know. Uh, no, like I said, I think autism and all that kind of are reference point issues. These people are out of phase. Because back in the 80s, when I was worked for DARPA, we used to get these. I worked with a crew, Al Bielek and Duncan, and what's his name, the big boy, Preston Nichols, and a few other guys and gals. And we had this handler who wore cowboy clothes and had 245s. And it was, these guys in suits would come and bring us stuff to our laboratory, and they had to have no idea what it is. And our job was to figure out what it was, back engineer. And one time we got these little donuts. They were about that big. And they had more gauze. They were so strong that they could pull the iron out of your blood. And there was a computer that was way more advanced than probably anything today that came along with them. And they had these cables that were like USB plugs, but they weren't. And they took energy out of the 0 point, not because this thing just plugged into the outlet. But when we put a device to measure the gauss of the magnets, and we had to build a Faraday cage, otherwise it would have killed us. And then we learned how to use the computer to control the magnets. And we built a table that had non-conductive materials. They were crystals. And we put these magnets all the way around the table, and we would put people in them. And the MRI device came out of what we kind of fooled around with, because what we did was not imaging things. What we could do was we could change the energetics of the individual. So we put people in there that had autism, fix them like that. People who were sociopaths, people who were neurotic, psychotic, manic depressant. We could, without any drugs, just right. And the effect of this machine and the use of it would last, anywhere from a week to a couple of months, depending on the individual. And once we started, getting seriously into testing this and building a regimen, the equipment was taken away from us. And they said, oh, thank you very much for your work, and here's some money, and we're going to give it now to the experts. And they had no idea. When they gave it to us, they had no idea what the fuck this thing was. And we figured it out. And then they took it away from us and said, we're going to give it. It was just like straight out of Spielberg's, Indiana Jones. And pretty much the healing, what is dis-ease, right? When you take the word apart, like dissing someone, ease, it's the destruction of the ease of your energetics, right? And the chemistry is the crass tool. The energetics is the more elegant way of healing. Let's see. Where do you live, Jane? What part of the universe? Maybe I'll come visit you. I'm just waiting for. There are a number of medical issues I'm dealing with now, and I'm going to fix by May, and then it'll be warm enough for me to go into the deep green, which I love. Oh, gotta rotate it. But out there, I have no internet whatsoever, and so I won't be able to knock out 2 shows a day. And that's kind of why I want you guys to plaster this stuff all over the universe until people are calling for us to go on the road and go visit them at universities and schools and all kinds of places for that. And that will be that's my next, calling. There is, but Jane, it's right on the edge, meaning if we go on the road, we can bring this. I mean, this technology is not like super sophisticated. I can make this shit in someone's basement, you know? I think I went to this school called Cooper Union, and it was a really brilliant school. Started before the Civil War. Guy named Cooper, his wife named Union. He was an engineer. She was a English portrait artist, and so the school was an engineering school and an art school and architect school. And if you studied anyone, you had to study them all. Like if you went there to be an architect, you had to study art and engineering. You went there engineering, it's architect and art. And I went there to, my grandpa Stahl put me there to study electrical engineering. And I was 16. You're not supposed to be there. It's 100% free. You don't have to pay a nickel. But you got to be, meaning the whole thing of that school was they wanted to make a community of interesting minds. So if you have an interesting mind, they want you. So they pay for it. They had so much money. I don't know if it's free anymore, but when I was there. So my grandpa Stahl got me in. He went to the president, said, this boy's going to school tomorrow. And they said, fine. And because everyone owned Grandpa Cooper Union. Yep. Exactly. And anyway, I went into this class, and all these guys in white shirts, black ties, and their slide rules stuck to their hip. And he was doing a field equation on the blackboard. And he was going on and on and on. And I kind of raised my hand, and he goes, what do you want? And I said, that's wrong. I said, what? And the guy was like in shock. He was like 50 years old and been an electrical engineer for 30 years. And he was doing everything by the textbook. When I got up there, I raised the equation, and I said, see, all you got to do is use this part of the equation, bring it over here, take these numbers, plug it in there, bingo, there's the answer. And the guy was like, and I said, these are called field equations because they're done in the field. And you don't need to take it, to 19 zeros past the decimal point. 3 will do fine. You're just trying to figure out how to make the transformer. I said, and you guys probably have never touched a transformer in your life. But you're doing this equations like it's religion. And I got thrown out of the class. I was there like all of 40 minutes, bing, threw me right out, right? And so the president of the school came down and said, listen, Al, you're a smart kid. No one's supposed to be here unless you're 20, and you're 16. You're still in high school, but you're here, only because of your grandpa Stahl. I owe him a lot. So listen, we have this new department called Alternative Technology. I think you'd be much better there. I said, yeah, it sounds great. So I went there, and everybody, was more like me and more interesting. And I had this teacher, and he used to smoke a cigar in a pipe because he had marijuana stuff in the bottom of the pipe, and the cigar was just kind of, masking it. And the guys I hung out, they were all wearing leather jackets and jeans and sitting in the back, and they were smoking pot, and he didn't care. And there were no tests, no quizzes, no textbook. We just talked about alternative technology and history and all the greats. And we only had one project, and that was we had to think of something that would change the world. That was it. Didn't have to make it work. Just had to think about it, right? Anyway, all those guys, this is 1968, even earlier, 67. All those guys, if they left, they were in their 20s. If they left that school, they're going to Vietnam. So not me. I was still in high school, but I was there, Anyway, I'd hang out with him. This one guy had uh, a garage on Avenue A that became a nightclub called the Gas Station or Gaseteria. Anyway, so we had a group vehicle that was this gigantic contractor truck with all the boxes, and the thing got about a mile to the gallon, but gasoline was only 16 cents a gallon, and it belched black smoke like it was burning wood. And he was changing the oil in the thing, and he goes, "Don't we have a project due Monday? And if we don't do it, we fail. And if we fail, we go to Vietnam and die." And they go, "Oh yeah, but we're all smoking pot and drinking beer." And anyway, he said, "Well," you could see the light bulb go over his head. If we could get this truck to get better. Anyway, long story short, within a 6-hour period, with a consumption of 4 6-packs and an ounce of pot, we made a new carburetor that got that truck to run on. It got 120 miles to the gallon, and there was no carbon coming out of the tailpipe. And what we did was we put another alternator on the engine. We had a sealed tank that we put water in, and we took the current from that alternator and put it into the water. Had 2 electrodes. The electrodes turned the water into hydrogen oxygen, and we stuck the hydrogen oxygen straight into the carburetor, and we burnt the gasoline 100%. And as I said, we got 120 miles to the gallon, and there were no carbon coming out the tailpipe, right? We went to one of those places that, test your emissions, and I don't understand. All I get out of this thing is water. Anyway, we showed our teacher. Everybody else had their little projects and, made out of popsicle sticks. And he says, "Okay, boys, what do you got?" And we said, "Oh, you got to come out to the parking lot." We went out there. The gas gauge was at, below E. We drove to the gas station on Hudson Street, put 25 cents worth of gas in there, and then drove us all the way up to Connecticut to this lobster shop where we had dinner, and then turned around and drove back to New York on 25 cents worth of gas. And the thing didn't even, he goes, "Let's look under the hood." And we showed him. He goes, "Yep, I thought you guys would have the best thing. You should be proud. You get an A, you get a star, and a plus. Now, take it out and destroy it." No, the first he said, "What are you guys going to do with this thing?" "Oh, well, we're going to patent it, and we're going to..." He goes, "So what did it take you? About 6 hours, couple 6-packs and an ounce of pot, right?" And that's exactly what it took. And he goes, "You think you're the first morons to think this up? No, you're just a smart bunch of monkeys. You're my cadre." That's what he called us, our cadre. He goes, "I'm proud of you boys, but you need to get rid of it." He goes, "If you even tell anybody about it, you will be dead. You think you're like, this thing's been around 100 years. And no one, and then he proceeds to tell us all about the mud flood, all about the Gilded Age, all about how technology is a good 1,000 years ahead of where it was, all about Operation Paperclip, all about how when he was a boy, and he got drafted, he went to engineering school, but his parents came from Germany. They ran away from Adolf. I mean, they weren't Jews, but they didn't like Adolf, so they came to America. But he could speak German like Germans, and he parachuted behind and made deals with the scientists. It was 45 towards the end of the war, and he was part of Operation Paperclip, and he brought all those guys, and he said it wasn't 1,000. He said they brought 70,000 Nazis, not just scientists, Nazis, into the American government. And he goes, they took it over. And I learned about that in 1967. So, I mean, that's where we are. That's what's going on. That's why Donald Trump is, he's the last president, or maybe Mike Pence. And that's why Mike Pence looks so much like Mike Sutherland, right? What's his name? Who was the president in Hunger Games, Donald Sutherland. Mike Pence looks just like him. And you know, the Hunger Games, working for the friggin' Nazis. That's right. We all are. We are the expendables. And then the guys who are like the bank presidents and doctors and lawyers, they are the worker bees. And the guys like the Rothschilds and Rockefellers et al. Are Bill Gates, all those chumps. They're the managers. And now the owner class, you have never seen them. You don't know who they are because they're from other dimensions, other times, other parts of the solar system and other parts of the universe, That scene, any of you seen Hellboy and of the first movie, and they're going into that Scottish island, and the Nazis are there, going into a dimensional rift? Well, that's exactly what happened. And Twitchy, you can always go listen to these tapes, download them, get them on your hard drive. Everyone, take them down and put them, for security's sake. A number of you have. A number of you put them on Facebook and put them all, start putting them all over the place, because it's going to take you some time to have the courage. You are following the path, you are adepts, and that's why I'm here for you. It's not that I'm making it easier for you. I'm just laying down the breadcrumbs, I'm, keeping your eye on the ball. And I will do it as long as I can. But, like I said, yesterday was my 69th birthday. I'm heading into my 70th year. And I got a lot of things wrong with me. But they are a great blessing because they force me to be like a monk. You said, "Oh, you're like," well, I am. I have to pray. I have to, be shamanically clear every day, or I get sick. I mean, I really do. I mean, if I don't keep my eye on this ball, I get sick pretty quick. And so, as not to, get sick really quick and die, I in a monk's form. But, and I'm not, stuck. Meaning, I go out there amongst the masses and deal with everyone because it brings me joy. Every day, in every way, some little way, I talk to 10, 15 people who I have no idea who they are, but I make a difference in their life. Like the guy who was the dentist who took my teeth out, the guy, the nurse. I read their palms. I read everyone in that place, even the guys in the waiting room who were chained up and guarded by guys with guns. I read everyone's palm. I made everyone happy in that space. And that's what makes me happy. And that's what gives me life. That's what keeps me healthy. Yes, I have pain all day long, meaning I walk, my two ankles don't exist. You got these little 9 bones that connect your ankle to your foot. Well, my neuropathy has turned them both into mush. I used to have to walk with, my mom had the same thing. I'm a lot biologically like my mom rather than my dad. Anyway, so I used to have have metal braces on my legs and walk with a walker, and I don't do that anymore. And my osteopath can't believe I can walk. I do have ankle supports, Jane. So my leg, because if I don't have the ankle supports, if I were to like step on a pebble or a twig and my foot would go like that, my foot would snap right the fuck off. So yes, Jane, I do have ankle supports, and thank you for the good thought. Don't worry, Twitch. No worries. No worries for any of you guys. I am shamanically tuning everyone in the sound of my voice, and even the ones who aren't, in the sound of my voice. You are that pebble I'm, throwing into the pond to make the wave of love's tsunami. And that's what will, deal with the illusion of the Luciferian material world. I mean, all the things that people go on and on about don't matter. The only thing that matters is your intent to co-create with love. That's it. That's all that counts. That's all that matters. And your tool that I'm sharpening for you, with you, is, going into state, right? So here it is, 1 hour and 6 minutes and 34 seconds. So my talking, my mouth is starting to hurt a little bit more. So I'm going to say au revoir at 1 hour, 11 minutes, and 11 seconds. Right? Be the love. Exactly. So, when I sign off, I would wish that everyone were, if they can, go into state and meet me in dream time. If you're going to sleep like I am, go into dream time. If you're going to work or at work, or that's what I liked about the cadre. It is all over the friggin' planet. A lot of these channels that I look at, everyone's like in the same basically time zone / tribe. See, we're not a tribe. We are a cadre of individuals who have cultural, aesthetic differences that are amazing. And most people at this time are so stuck into being separate. I was at a university lecturing, and people were upset because I was making them feel uncomfortable. It was really sad. And I didn't get angry or anything. I just doubled down. I just spun up the shamanic energy, and they were like screaming like they were, ah! Yep. And, and the people who brought me there were like apologizing. And I said, no, don't apologize. Don't worry about it. And I said, I just kind of hit them between the eyes with truth, because I kept saying things that were against their belief structure, their worldview. And I said, don't believe anything I say, go Google it. And they kept Googling everything I said and finding out that I was right and their belief structure was wrong. It was like, ah, how dare I do that? It's at a university. How dare I do that? I said, what do you think you're here for? I said, if you're here to get a job, well, baby, get used to working at McDonald's. Oh, they didn't like that one either. And I basically went on about separation. And, when you think it's got to be this way, and everyone else who's not thinking the way you are terrible people, they're Nazis or this or that. No, the only way you're going to get rid of Nazis are loving them. Meaning I've hung out with a lot of Nazis, not supported them, not joined them, not, as they would say, got written in. But I would talk to them, listen to them, understand where they were coming from, and try to help them find love's co-creation, So, and that is the task I am tasking you all with, all right? You are the cadre. That's your task, to go out and love humanity so they can love themselves and create their own love with their life. That's what it's about. And that's where we're going, and as my mouth feels better, I'll be able to go longer. But right now we're getting towards 1 hour, 10 minutes, 36 seconds. So in the next minute or so, I'm going to sign off. So I send you off with all my love. Whoops. Hey, what are you doing here? I'm still here. I hit that little X. There we go. 1 hour, 11 minutes. 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, good night, kids. I love you guys. I'll see you in the morning.